When people say, "Oh, you've impacted my life," or "You've done this for me," or "You've done that," that warms my heart.
Were you an amazing student?
No, I was. I was a B student. I was a very respectful student. All of our shiny things, they're not coming with us.
I'm thinking about when I think how much money I spent on the car. It's like I'm going to be buried in this fucking car for sure. Phil Di Bella, I won't say king of coffee, but I'll straight away get into it, man. As I was building my business over many years, I was always looking up to you without even knowing you. And you probably don't realize how many people out there you have actually impact on and you never met them.
Yeah.
Do you realize that?
No, I don't. But I was talking to someone today and they said, how do you feel? I said, I feel fucking old sometimes. I just turned 50 this year. And people go, you're still young. And I think, yeah, I know, but sometimes I feel old. And that was one of the things we talked about. I thought, when I look back, for my 50th, one of my friends gave me This Is Your Life.
Yes.
And a bit of a story. And it was amazing. But in short...
Because you lived a lot in 50 years.
That's right. There was so much in there that I just didn't, that I forgot about. Like I chaired the Queensland Great Awards. I chaired the Australian of the Year Awards.
Yes.
And people in those awards, people like Stefan, I remember when he was awarded a Queensland Great, I was the chair of judges and I go, I would never put myself at that level of great.
Yes.
And I did that at, I think I was 38, 39 when I chaired that board. And I think I look back and I go, yeah, I've had, a big 50 years. And people say, what's next? And I go, well, I'm about impact, right? But I don't want to be that sacrificial lamb. Because I look at you and I look at Simon and I think there's so much drive and energy and you get excited. And then I just go, but hang on a minute. I always just wanted enough money to do what I want when I want, and I've got that. I've wanted enough time to do what I want when I want.
Yes.
And I wanted my health, which, as you know, was a journey, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. But when I look back, I go, what's the greatest achievement is the impact. And so when I thank you for sharing that. When people say, oh, you've impacted my life, or you've done this for me, or you've done that, that warms my heart.
Yes. Well, and also when it comes to old, I always say, when people call me sir, don't fucking call me sir. Because I remember when I was much younger and older people, you call them sir. But in my mind, when I call somebody sir, you're like, you're old, and I'm being respectful. Italian culture, if you ask your dad, anybody older than you gotta never argue with them, you gotta respect them, and you call them a sir, whatever they are,
or mister,
or mister, what I mean. There's no, and so every time somebody calls me sir, I was like, let's just avoid that part, because I don't feel I'm at that stage of my life yet that I'm old enough to be called sir. But impact that you making, you're very humble about it, right? And I always say, you can say something to somebody and it can change their life for better or worse. Yeah. Because the conversation that we have with anybody, the words can hurt and can change somebody's life.
100%. Yeah.
And I think, in the moment, a lot of people don't put enough value what they're saying, especially if it's in a negative.
Yeah. They don't speak with purpose. Or sometimes they don't realize that the words they're saying have the impact that they don't want, and such. Don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect, far from it. But I've tried to adopt this mentality: say the truth or say nothing. So people will say something to me and they're waiting for a response, and I go, well, do you want the truth, or I just say nothing, because I'd rather say the truth or say nothing than lie to you.
But most people would rather you maybe say nothing because they can't handle the truth.
Yeah, and that's fair enough too. I mean, I think the truth's got a time and a place too, right? I mean, but I do agree. Words are really, people don't think about their words enough. And in a world with so much technology and AI and all this stuff, and it's all part of life and it's part of evolution, and it's there to stay, and it's going to get, I say it's a tool, you've got to know how to use it. I think we've got to be more conscious about our words. We've got to be more conscious about meaningful conversations, and that's something that people forget about. I've got a 17-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old boy, and I keep talking to them about, straight A's, your grades are great. They're both amazing, students, but I say you've got to be an amazing human. And a great way to be an amazing human is to choose your words carefully, have meaningful conversations with people.
Were you an amazing student?
No, I was a B student. I was a very respectful student. I was very polite. I was respectful. But and that's a great question, because
would you be upset if your kids had grades the way you had it and the way I had it?
No, not at all, because I'm a visual learner. Yes. I'm not. I can't look at instructions, right? Like, forget IKEA. People, I said to people, I could never put together furniture of IKEA because I can't follow instructions. But if I can watch you do it, I can replicate it. So I was cooking in a kitchen from the age of 15, 16, and I've never followed a recipe in my life. But I can cook really well.
Yes.
I'm a visual learner. I'm a touchy feeling. And that's the thing, is that everyone learns differently.
Yes.
And the school system for me was, I aced all of my exams when they were practical. So anything that was presentation, anything that was go research, build something, develop a business.
I know somebody asked me, what was your favorite subject? I said, I remember I was really good at woodwork back in the day.
Yeah, that's right. Well, woodwork, I aced woodwork, I aced speech and drama.
Because I had to freaking build shit. I was like, man, my dad, when I went to grade 10, 11 and 12 in Australia, and whatever I built then, my dad still has. It's still freaking good quality, But then, then some subjects like science, I was like, man, I don't know how the hell I passed that because I had no interest.
I'm the same maths. I mean, I was the student that said, and I still say it now because, my kids are much better at maths than I am, but it's their weakest subject. But again, much, much better than me. And I said to them, do you still got to memorize your formulas? And they go, yeah. And I said, what a waste of time.
Yes.
Why do you... See, I can't memorize formulas, right?
Yes.
So I'm never going to be good at maths because you've got to memorize the formula. Give me the formula, I can work out the problem. Yes. And again, I suppose that opens up a big thing that I took into my working career is, everyone learns differently. Yes. Everyone excels differently. Everyone has a different take and ability. And some people are visual learners. Some people are recall learners.
Yes.
Like some interesting facts coming out of private schools is, why does Brisbane Boys Grammar develop so many professionals, so many lawyers, doctors, accountants, because it's all learnt smart. It's all that recall. It's all that ability to do that. But it doesn't produce a lot of entrepreneurs.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't build a lot of business owners because you'll find that most entrepreneurs, business owners are visual learners. They're auditory learners. They're not so much, book learners.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. But when we bring it into the workplace, how are we training our teams? How are we training our staff? How are we working with them? Because not all of them learn the same way.
I think somebody said to me the other day, education is completely changing because with AI and everything that's available to people, and somebody said the other day, is it worth kids even going to school? I said, if one thing kids can get out of school, communications with other people, other students, teachers, catching a bus, saying good day to bus driver. So that communication and the discipline, you have to start something and finish
it. Agreed. And you'll find that's common with migrant kids, right? Like we're both sons of migrants. It is. I don't care what you start, but you finish it.
Yes.
If you start one season of soccer, you finish soccer.
Correct.
You don't quit. If you want to take up a language, you take the language, but you finish it.
And there's a discipline that they get. I mean, even people always say, do you have to go to university to be an entrepreneur? I mean, you don't have to go to school at all. There are people that never went to school are worth probably billions of dollars. But I always say that if you can master discipline, even if you can get that out of university, and I never went to university, I was like, you're already doing well.
Yeah.
Even if nothing comes out of it. I got a question for you. At what stage in your life did you realize you truly have one life? I was like, I need to take things differently. Because I feel like, when you're in your 20s, you're bulletproof. You're never going to die. You don't even think about, when you're going to die. You got all the time in your head, you live forever in your 20s. But now I'm 46, you're 50. I was like, whew.
You start to think about it, right?
You start to thinking like, okay, this stage of my life, I gotta be calculated, if I'm living a healthy or not healthy, and like, surely I'm not gonna feel like this when I'm fucking 95 years old, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So was there a moment or stage of your life when you think like, hey, Phil, wake the fuck up, buddy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there was.
The clock is ticking.
Oh yeah, and it was, I remember it as clear as day, and I was in my doctor's office. And Dr. Saul, he's amazing. He does a lot of the boxers and athletes, and he's a genius. This guy. I don't know about his bedside manner sometimes, but he's a genius in how he is, and I've always respected him. And I sat down in front of him, and he said, "You're turning 40 soon," and I went, "Yeah." And I get my blood test done every year,
yes.
For health insurance and stuff like I've had for a long time. And he looked at me and he goes, "I'm telling you again, you're turning 40 soon." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You're not going to fucking feel this good at 40, and you're not going to feel this good at 50, and you need to lose some weight." And I went, "Sorry?" And he goes, you're the fittest fat fuck I know. He goes, I was 160 odd kilos at the time, right? And he goes, you have boxing matches, you train. He goes, you've got enough money. He goes, but one day you're just not going to wake up. And he looked at me straight down, in the eye and said, you are not going to wake up one day. Most people get warning signs when they're sick. They have, high blood pressure, cholesterol, whatever. You're taking your life for granted because every time you get a blood test, I just shake my head. He sent me off for a calcium test to see if there was, calcium in my blood because my dad's had heart attacks from the age of 55. He's still 88 and alive, touch wood. But he's looked at me and he said, you're a freak. And he goes, but the problem is this is going to be your weakness. Yes. You think you're bulletproof. And he used those exact words.
Because that was in your head.
That's right. He goes, you think that, you're 39, you're about to turn 40, you've had your annual test, we're now giving you colonoscopies, we're giving you bloody, dye tests for your calcium score. Everything's come back clear. And he goes, that's a good thing. But on the flip side, he goes, it's time to really wake up because tomorrow you might not wake up.
Yes.
And I looked at him and I went, when somebody like this that you respect knows the industry is having such a serious conversation with you, it is time to pull your head out of your ass, stop making excuses, which is what I kept doing, and it's time to now look after the biggest asset.
But I think at that time, you were ready to accept what somebody's telling you. If somebody told you that at age 30, you tell him, go fuck yourself.
Well, totally.
Yeah,
totally. I had many people, and that's the thing. There's a lesson in that, Emil. We can tell people what we want for the best interest, but until they're ready to hear it and until they're ready to make the change, doesn't mean we don't love them. But we've just got to give them that space because I had a lot of people telling me, I had a lot of people that loved me and wanted me to be healthy. And I never got angry with them. I always understood why. But it wasn't
You didn't have that conversation with yourself to say, I'm freaking ready.
That's right. And that was the turning point. That was the point where you just go, you know what? What for? And now what I talk about, there's no removalist truck following a hearse to a funeral.
No. Would be good if it was.
All of our shiny things, they're not coming with us.
I'm thinking about, when I think how much money I spend on the cars, like I'm going to be buried in this fucking car for sure. I'm not leaving that behind.
Well, there was a story, a friend of the family's, one of my best mates, his uncle in Melbourne, worth billions of dollars. Anyway, he did get buried in a solid gold casket. Right? I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars it cost, but
there's the graveyard.
But they had to lift it. It was one of those houses. You know how the Greeks and the Italians do the houses.
Yes.
They had there's a picture of a hoist lifting the thing up because nobody was lifting it up to slide it in.
And the funny thing is, he doesn't know what is it made out of when he's dead.
That's right. And that. But again, coming back to your point, that was my turning point. When somebody looks at you and just says, "Hey." And I think we have a few turning points like that in our lives where we've just really got to dig deep and question, why am I doing this? And one of my things I talk about now is at what cost?
Yes.
People go, you're going to expand the Coffee Commune. At what cost?
Yes.
There's $100 million offer on the table to build more of these. At what cost?
Yes. There's a price to pay for everything.
For everything. And that's why I say we've got to get comfortable with that price. If you're comfortable with it, then you make the move, yes or no. But you've got to get comfortable with whatever scenario that's put in front of you, because that was the scenario I had to face before I turned 40. And that's why in 2014 I made the decision I'm selling the company and I'm going to flip the model and I'm going to now focus on me. And I went from 167 kilos. In 2017 I was 167 kilos because I had to have an earn out. So that had a lot of pressure obviously to be on for 2 years. But the moment I hit 30 June 2017, I said it's me time. 2017, it took me, say, 4 years to get down to about 110 kilos. I now sit on 102 kilos, 15% body fat.
Which is ridiculous.
Quite healthy, which is great.
Yeah.
I mean...
Did you... I feel like what I have experienced, my energy in my head was always up here.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm bulletproof. And all my life, if I'm tired or puffy or whatever, my brain would tell my body, go and fuck yourself. Yeah. We just keep going.
Yeah.
There's just no compromising. Last year, I was at the point where middle of the day, 2 o'clock, I will want to have a nap, like typical European. If you ask your dad and anybody else, they would always have a nap. And I was like, man, I never, last year was experiencing that. And the reason why they would have a nap because they would have a fucking bread, pastas, and they had to have a nap because if you have a massive pasta lunch, you need a nap. Otherwise you can't function, right? Otherwise you're just sitting and then your brain is not working. And last year I felt like my brain is always here, but my energy, my level of fitness and the diet was on the bottom. And up to that moment, I was always telling my body, go and fuck yourself and just keep pushing. And now, 7 months into eating properly, 5 days a week PT, I feel like my health or fitness is matching my head, and I feel like I'm on another level now when it comes to how sharper I am, how I think, and so on. Question I have for you: did you always have the same energy when you were 20, 30, when you sold your company, and later, and today?
Yeah, in short, yes. And why you answered it before. Our body does what our brain tells it to do.
Yes.
Right? So, it's the
But
difference.
sometimes your body is like, hey, fuck.
Well, the difference is, and that's why I went through the anxiety, right?
Yes.
Your body will always do what your brain tells it to do. However, will it do it willingly?
Yes.
Or will it do it unwillingly?
Am I forcing you to do
That's
it?
right. And the point that I started forcing it, which was in my late 30s, that's when anxiety kicked in. And my anxiety there's different forms of anxiety, but my anxiety was my body couldn't keep up with my brain.
Yes.
And when my brain would want to switch off, my body that's when it retaliated and my body went, fuck you.
Yes.
And when did it happen? Well, it happened on a plane. So, I was traveling 3 weeks a month, for business across Australia, because I always had a policy, meet all my new customers, go travel with my team, train them in the car, go out with them. They introduce me to the new customers, shake their hands, give them a business card, make them feel part of the family.
Yes.
Something that nobody did in our industry, especially us being the biggest in the industry, right? We had 11% of the market share and 2,000 competitors. That gives you an idea of the size.
Yes.
I'd get on a plane and I'd sitting to a lovely old lady, and it'd start the jitters, the breathing, and the lovely lady would go, "Oh, Sonny, are you a nervous flyer?" And I'm thinking, no, fuck off, I'm not a nervous flyer. I just suffer anxiety, But no, darling, it's okay. I'm good. But you're sweating, and you're breathing, and you're drinking water. And I go, yeah, I'm just suffer anxiety. She goes, "Oh, you're a nervous flyer." No. I suffer anxiety because when my brain slows down, my body wants to keep going. It used to happen 9 times out of 10 getting on a plane. If we would go to the movies, you'd sit down, everything's gone black, my brain's going, right, time to relax, and then my body would kick in. And it was like this jolt, and your heart's beating hard and your breath goes. And of course, and that's when I had to learn how to meditate. Now, meditation is only call it a Band-Aid. It's a great Band-Aid, but it's a Band-Aid. I had to get rid of what the cause of that anxiety was. And that
so you dig deep.
And that was, the brain can't keep telling the body what to do unwilling, and the body doesn't do it willingly. And that's what you've experienced now, obviously, in the last 7 months, is that now what your body will do what your brain tells it, because your body's being looked after.
Yes.
And nutrition's a big one. Like I got to a stage where,
especially European, like everything good about my life is gone.
Oh, Jordan, yeah. Being Italian, my body hates carbohydrates.
I eat bread with bread. There's nothing.
I'm hearing you.
There's nothing better than any restaurant you go to, that fresh bread, half liter of olive oil, and I am the one that literally wants to drink it like a water and just keep dipping the bread.
Yep, but
that's gone out of my life.
Yeah, and you've got the height. Imagine me. I don't have the height to carry, right? And it's a journey, and I've noticed that the diet's a big one, and sometimes something I've learned in the last couple of years, because I was actually probably 6-7 kilos lighter than I am now, but not as healthy, because my blood's got checked, and doctor said, now you're about 6 months away from your body shutting down, and I'm going, fuck, doctor. First you tell me I'm fit, fat, fuck, go lose weight. I'm looking amazing. I'm great. I'm lean. He goes, yeah, but there's a problem.
Yes.
You train like an athlete. So you're training 10 to 12 hours a week, but you're not eating like an athlete. I was only eating 1.5 meals a day. You're not sleeping like an athlete. You're only sleeping 5 or 6 hours. You're drinking enough water. He goes, you're not taking nutrients and supplements. He goes, if you're going to train like this, he goes, let me introduce you to something. And again, like I said, Dr. Saul's a very smart doctor, does a lot of athletes, a lot of professional athletes. And he said, don't listen to one person and think that they're right. There is a certain lifestyle for longevity.
Yes.
There's a certain lifestyle for losing weight. There's a certain lifestyle for an athlete. He goes, you can't mix them all up. He goes, you've got to choose what your outcome is. And this is 2 years ago where I just went, okay, now I've got to look at the outcome.
Yes.
Do you want to be 9% body fat and ripped? And I went, no.
Yes.
He goes, so then take that off the table. What do you want? I said, I want to be agile. I want to be mobile. I want to look fit. I don't want to look muscly. He goes, right. So we look at you and say, right, you want longevity, which is, good balance of food, good balance of sleeping, good balance of nutrients, good balance of mobility. And he goes, that's completely different. So now I train 5 to 6 hours a week.
Yes.
I eat 3 meals a day. I take different supplements.
Yes.
I sleep 7 to 8 hours. And so it's all relative to what the outcome is, because what 100%. I'm chasing, I'm not an athlete. I don't want to be an athlete. I don't want to be.
You want to feel good.
I want to feel good. Yes. I want to be, I want people to look at me and go, you look fit.
But why are we that fucking stupid that we don't realize that stuff at some earlier stages of our life? Yeah. Like, think about humans. Like, God or whatever is out there, we got given a life. And as humans, this is not a rehearsal. You got one life, you got to live it. But no, let's fuck it up. Let's drink. People do drugs, smoke. They're like, let's destroy this body. So instead of living till fucking 120, how about you die at fucking 50?
Yeah.
Why are humans attracted to, I want to die fucking earlier?
Yeah, it's a good question, because,
we all been there, right? Like, I used to smoke. I was like, hey, you don't need a fucking uni degree to figure out smoking kills you. So, you know what? Let's put poison and all fucking chemicals in your body so you can die earlier.
Yeah. And I think you're 100%, because I started smoking when I was at university, right? Why? It was, it was relaxing. It chilled me out. It was something to look forward to. And you know what? The short answer to me is that short dopamine hit. We're not thinking long term. If we think long term, right? And this is what I had to do with my weight, because I used to go up and down, is that I looked at everything short term. So I'd drop 10 kilos, put on 12, drop 15, put on 17.
Yes.
When I took the long approach and went, what does my life look like at 40, at 50? What does my life look like at 60? What does my life look like at 70? I then make the decisions, and this is one of the things that I love doing with the One Life Club, is that I talk about nothing starts until you plan your outcome.
Yes.
Now, what is your outcome? Once you have your outcome, we reverse engineer the actions.
Yes.
And the model that I use, and I love it, and because it's helped me so much, and it's having big impact now with the One Life Club crew, is where I go, in the middle, I put a circle, and that's your outcome. So 2025 December, say my personal outcome is to be under 100 kilos, which it is, right? To sit under 100 kilos. Now, if I think of December 2025, and I'm sitting here with you and we go to lunch, it's the difference between me going, the pizza or the steak? The pizza or the steak? The beer or the wine?
You can always have a pizza as a fucking entree and then go to the steak.
No, but I can't. Why?
Because like real Italians, man.
Yeah, but I can't, because if I'm thinking long term, if I'm thinking in the moment, I would have the pizza and the steak.
Yes.
But if I'm thinking December 2025, and this is why when they talk about, this visualization bullshit, well, no, it's not bullshit. It's only used in a bullshit way. You've got to visualize something. You've got to plan it. You've got to want it. If you plan it and you want it, then your actions will reverse engineer.
Do you think people fail? A lot of people, they might focus, you know what? I'm creating a business. This is my business plan. I always say to people, there's something more important. Why don't you create a fucking life plan?
100%.
A life plan, in your case, I got 2 kids. How do I want and what do I have to do to maintain relationship with my kids over the next 1, 5, 10, 20,
Correct.
30 years?
Correct.
Because you're getting a different enjoyment out of each stage of their life as well.
Yes.
I mean, look, son or daughter is 17.
My daughter's 17, son 15.
Next thing is, in maybe 10 years, they're both going to be married. You know what I mean? So it's a different stage of life.
Yeah.
So what kind of life do I want with them? Or my wife, or my colleagues, and business, and whatever it is. So people, they everything is... Look, when you're starting your business, everything's about the business, I understand. Head down, bum up, and just fucking keep digging. But people always say, you can map your life on a fucking whiteboard and just have a little goals, little ticks every single fucking day or week or month towards your life goal and trying to maintain it. Not everything is going to go how you want it to go,
Correct.
but at least you got to map how you want your life to look
Agreed.
at. And I don't think people are... I didn't think like this when I was fucking much younger either, which is normal.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting human behavior. Like, it's like we just like to destroy ourselves.
Sometimes, yeah, look, I think it's because we're not looking long term.
Yes.
And as you know, one of the things I talk about all the time, it doesn't matter whether it's, with One Life Club, whether it's, in work with my own team, I say to them, I don't just want you to have professional goals. I want you to have personal,
100%.
family, and professional goals. And that is the foundation of a life plan.
You always preach about that.
Always preach about it, because I learned from my mistakes, right? And if I can, one of the best things of looking at, everyone wants to study the person that does things well. I've always been fascinated.
I can give you a Bible of how I fucked up.
Yeah, well, I love fascinating. They're the stories I like to hear. I like to hear the stories of fuck-ups. Why? Because if you fucked up, I want to know what the lesson was, and I don't want to repeat that lesson, right? And so I like talking about my fuck-ups, and go, right, I went everything deep down on professional. I forgot about me personally. I forgot about family. Right, my wife wasn't happy with me. I don't think she's ever happy with me, but that's a different story.
That's a different podcast. The only people watching it will be two of us.
but I was a shit father. I was a shit husband, and I was shit individually, because everything was all about work. And if I can teach someone, don't look at me now and what I've created. Don't look at don't look at cars people drive and the money you got and whatever it is. What lessons did they learn that they can teach me, so I learn and do better, and that's what we want. We want that past, we want the knowledge, inheritance. People talk about money inheritance. Fuck that. What about the knowledge inheritance? How about passing down the knowledge and the things that we learn?
Money can come and go, but the knowledge you gain.
The wisdom comes with age. Wisdom comes with experience. So I want to sit down and listen to. I love the good stories. I love people succeeding. It's amazing. It drives me. It makes me excited. But I'm really interested in sitting down with people.
So one thing I always say, I love talking to people that are 80, 90.
Wisdom, life experience.
Especially, look, when I go to Croatia, for example, I love going to little villages and seeing these men that are 85, or women 85, 95 years old. When you shake their hand, you're like, they'll want to break your hand because they work in the field and you know what I mean? Yeah. And so much to learn from them about life. I always say to anybody, if you really want to know how important the life is, just go and speak to somebody who's 90 years old and ask them, how fast did this life go? Yeah. No, not one of them is going to tell you, hey, it took me forever to get here. It's like, it goes quick. It goes quick, So what we do in that meantime is massive difference. When you, clearly it's public knowledge, you sold your company. Yep. Prior to that, when you knew you're going to sell it, when you knew deal was happening, in your mind, did you think to yourself, when this is sold, I'm done with work at that moment? Or did you think, once I sell this, I'm going to fucking gas it harder? Yeah. What was that moment when you knew it's fucking happening? And obviously, as a human, you think, or try to think past when it happens. Before that, what was in your bold head? Yeah. Like, where the fuck am I going to go?
Well, I still couldn't believe it was happening, to tell you the truth, until I saw the checks. And, it was 2015.
Was it back in that day? Was it actually a check or money dropped in your account?
There's a story that it was 2015, January 2015, I got my first lot of checks, first payments, and substantial payments. And I said to the bank manager, for two reasons, and we laugh about it now. He's retired now, but we have a laugh about it. Because about 4 years before, they wanted to, banks want to value everything. And I'm like, don't worry. And I'm old school. You don't need to value anything. Do I owe you money? No, you got your loans are good. Your loans are very small. Good. So what do you want to value? Oh, because we want to update our portfolio. I said, okay, you want to value shit, you value it. It's your cost, not mine. Yes. And he comes back and he goes, oh, we valued your business. And I said, I didn't ask you to value my business. He goes, oh, but we did. I said, oh, interesting. He goes, I said, what is it worth? And he got a piece of paper and a pen and he wrote down 3, and I was waiting. And then he put M next to it and his circle, and it was in red pen. And I went, 3 million. He goes, yeah, that's what we valued your business at. I said, you're a fucking idiot. and he looked at me and he goes, I beg your pardon? And I said, I've been working with him for about 10, 12 years. I said, you're a fucking idiot. You think my business is worth $3 million? I've been working this hard for $3 million. You're fucking crazy. Anyway, fast forward 3, 4 years later, when our offer came through and the reported offer, in the media was 47 million, public company. So forget all the add-ons, but 47 million reported offer. And I said, and NAB was my bank. And I said,
how's my 3 million going?
I said, I want checks. And they said, why do you want checks? And I said, because I want to take a fucking photo and send them to the retired motherfucker bank manager.
If he wasn't retired, I would make sure he's fired.
Who I love. I know, like I said, I still have coffee with him now, but I want to send it to him. And so, of course, I was in Queenstown at the time. A picture of the checks came through. I sent them to him and I said, thanks, mate. Lucky I didn't take your advice. I hope retirement's treating you well. But that's the point it sunk in. And I went, and I'll never forget, I was in Queenstown. We were there for friends of ours' 20th wedding anniversary. And I said, and I looked at Jana, my wife, and I said, what's next? And she goes, well, you've got 2 years to work with them. That's what's next. How are you going to go working with a public company?
Yes.
And I went, that's a good question. So I didn't really get that. Because me staying on, and that's why I said the deal was worth a lot more, because then I stayed on for 2 more years and got more checks, right? It wasn't like a stop, finish, go. Yes. In 2017, when was the actual end of the whole journey, 30 June, before that, they put a contract on my table and said, we want you for 2 more years. You can write your own contract. So I wrote my own contract. They agreed to it, and I stayed on for another 2 years. Yes. And then it was 2019 when the contract finished and went, well, what's next? And I thought, well, if I'm going to do something, I want to do something that has an impact. I want to do something that's different. I want to solve.
But did it ever come to your head not to do anything?
No, never. I got asked.
So that was never part of your.
No, and I don't play nicely working for other people. I think I'm good to be on a retainer. I'm good to be part of a business. I'm good to be a consultant.
But you never wanted to.
But I'm not an employee. Yes. And I respect that because I know what my limitations are.
When you sold the company, what was the first stupid mistake you made with the money?
Invested in somebody else's business. All of a sudden, I thought I was.
No, and that's interesting.
A lot of people do that
because I have a lot of friends who sold their companies, and they could be very good at running business. But it doesn't mean you're a good fucking investor the next day. Well, everything comes with education, right?
You know what was worse for me, Emil? It's
straight about my fucking Steve Jobs.
Don't think that other people run the business the way you run the business.
Yes.
Because I invested in a
different
business.
Wants, different needs, different passion.
Totally. And
different risk appetite, pressure.
People. And because I always talk about what problem do you solve, what makes you relevant, how do you tell a story?
Yes.
Now, I've never changed from that. But now I add one thing in if you're investing in somebody else's business. They can solve a problem really well.
Yes.
They could have relevant products and services. They could be amazing marketers.
Yes.
But if they don't have the right people, then it all falls over. And so, I invested into a business, not crazy amount of money, but a few $100,000 into a business that went from nothing to a 20 million valuation in 12 months. And I owned 15% of the company, I thought, this is fantastic.
On paper.
Yeah, on paper, correct. I thought, this is great. This investing stuff's easy. Yes. And then didn't I get slapped in the face really fucking hard because it's about lessons, right? This company then says, oh no, now we're going to go and we're going to accelerate further. We're going to Germany and we're going to be part of this massive program that accelerates the business, and away we go. And everyone's excited. And then 12 months later, they'd forgotten about what built their business in Australia, and it all collapsed. And everyone lost their money. Now, it was probably a fairly cheap lesson to learn, but it was a lesson, albeit. And the lesson was, doesn't matter how good you're solving a problem, doesn't matter how good your products or services are more relevant than anything else, and it doesn't matter how good your marketing is.
Yes.
If you don't invest in the right people with the right drive and the right, so what I call about it now is I only invest in stuff that I call where I can be a functional investor, which means where I can have a seat at the table. As you know, I'm invested in Get Ahead, and Sam's doing an amazing job, but I've got a seat at the table. I mentor him, I guide him, I help with his direction. He is an extremely hard worker. He's got a very good team around him. So not only does he have a product that solves a problem, he's more relevant. He's an amazing marketer. But the difference is that he's a hardworking person that lives, breeds that business, and he's got good people around him. And I've learned not to invest in anything that I don't have a functional seat at the table.
Yes.
But
also you needed to experience maybe the 100%. First business event to Germany to actually learn how to be invested.
I needed to get slapped.
It doesn't mean if we are good in something that we are good in fucking everything.
Agreed.
Full stop. I mean, everything is education in life, whatever we want to do. Full stop. Now, does it ever come to your head that, you know what? Is your risk appetite is getting larger or smaller as you're getting wiser.
Smaller.
I won't say fucking older. Wiser.
Smaller, definitely smaller. For a couple of reasons. When the older you get, the more bullshit you hear from people, right?
Yes.
And everyone's going to do this, and everyone's going to do that, and everyone's going to do this. And don't get me wrong. Sometimes this is where I say there is luck. Luck is timing and opportunity.
Yes.
Sometimes it's.
But you have to be fucking chasing and
you gotta
open to
chase
that as well.
100%.
Luck doesn't just come by sitting on your ass.
That's right. That's not luck, right?
Yes.
That's wishful thinking. Luck is where timing and opportunity align, right? Yes. So as I get older, my risk appetite decreases because I go, why did I start? What was my relation? Here's a key takeaway, Emil, for people listening. What is my relationship with money?
Yes.
And it's a deep question, right? But people don't ask themselves, what is my relationship with money? And I keep coming back to my relationship as a son of migrants, where my dad earned $450 a week. Enough money to do what you want, when you want. That's my relationship with money. I never forget being on Branson's Island. I spent a week at Necker Island, and I've told you that before. And I got to spend 2 nights with Richard Branson, and one night we got completely drunk. And he told me all about the ins and outs of why, Virgin Cola didn't work and why the Virgin Banks didn't work in Australia. And he told me about all the stories that didn't work. Because he goes, everyone wants to hear the good stuff.
And there's a lot more that didn't work than fucking
and he
did.
told me some brilliant stuff. And he actually said the stuff that didn't work is because it was about the people, not the idea. And it didn't matter how much money you threw at it. The people weren't good. And then the other one he said was the timing and opportunity, which is luck, right? So like Virgin Cola didn't work. He goes, I threw so much money at Virgin Cola, but there was no timing and opportunity because Pepsi and Coca-Cola were going really strong at the time. But we had a great discussion, and he said to me this: more people I know that go bankrupt are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And I said, why is that? How can you go broke being worth hundreds of millions of dollars? He goes, because they're chasing billionaire status. He goes, their relationship with money is about status. And that's
interesting. I was talking to Giselle the other day. One of my friends this Thursday is taking his company public. $1.6 billion valuation. They already raised $750 million. And I was like, man, that's to me, it's inspiring. I love seeing people do well. And then Giselle said to me, you need to run your own race. You know what I mean? So you can't just chase somebody else's dream. And in my case, I'm not, but I'm inspired and motivated. You know what I mean? It's like I went and stayed at Chris Vitali's, my mate's hotel on the Gold Coast for 4 days. Straight away coming back home, it's a $500 million development is built. Coming back home, I was like, fucking, I want to get into a hotel. My energy is through the roof, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think we all need to chase whatever, completes us, not what somebody else wants as well. I had a conversation, talk of investing, I had a conversation with Ian Malouf, another son of a migrant. Yes. Guy's worth $1.5 billion. He's got literally 10 super yachts himself. And I said to him, I want to buy a yacht. And he said, this is how you have to look at the yachts, buying yachts or any investments. Whatever you buy something for, let's say you buy it for 10 million. And you have to sell it tomorrow. You have to dump it tomorrow. How much are you happy to lose?
Yeah, it's a good philosophy, right?
So if you buy it for 10 and I need to dump it tomorrow because it's an asset that first is going to go if you are struggling. Mm-hmm. If you sell it for 6, are you happy losing that 4 million? And same thing is, if you're investing in somebody else's business where you actually got no say, if you're putting $500,000 in, am I actually happy to lose that $500,000? Correct. If answer is no, well, don't fucking put $500,000 in. How much are you happy to lose tomorrow? You know what I mean?
And it's a great philosophy. It's no different to, are you comfortable with the worst case scenario? It's one of those things. If you have to offload it and you need to, what are you comfortable losing, or what are you going to lose that's not going to change your lifestyle?
Do you back in the day when you were more under pressure than you are now, did taking certain risks keep you on your fucking toes more than you are now, or make you? I always feel like if two of us borrow $2 billion to invest it into something that we don't know, we'd be like on our fucking toes, speaking 24 hours. I'll be sleeping in the bed next to you. We'll be discussing it like fucking wives do with ideas 2 o'clock in the morning. Phil, what do you fucking think? Do you think sometimes a little bit of more of that on the edge risk 100%. Keeps you alive 100%. as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it does. Look, when you've got it all, my first business, I had it all on the line. I didn't have anything. I would have been able to earn a good wage. I had an apartment paid off. You know, I didn't risk that. But it does keep you on your toes. And that is one of the biggest things. I actually think that success breeds complacency.
Yes.
It really does. And that's one thing I'm conscious about when people go, okay, 50, what are you going to do in your next 30 years? And I said, enjoy myself.
Yes,
and they look at you and they go, sorry. And I go, I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to, you know, I've probably worked 2 lifetimes to get to where I am today, equivalent to, you know, 100-hour weeks, et cetera, et cetera. What am I going to do the next 30 years? I'm going to be healthy. If, you know, whatever God's plan is for me, but I'm going to be, because we don't know what happens tomorrow, but I'm going to be healthy, and I'm going to hopefully always be in a position where I've got enough money and enough time to do what I want when I want. I've already set my kids up. We've already put, you know, they've got money put aside and assets and, you know, all their education paid for and first car paid for. And, you know, we've got that because that means a lot to me and it means a lot to my wife, and that's done and sorted. But the next 30 years, you got to make a decision. Do I want to push harder and go harder, or do I want to enjoy myself? Now, there's no right or wrong. My plan is my plan. And it comes back to what I said.
I feel like sometimes we lie to ourselves.
Oh, we can't. Look, we lie ourselves to about all sorts of things.
Because looking at you from how much I know you, and maybe I'm wrong, I feel like whatever you're saying, there's still other Phil here saying, fucking let's push a little bit harder.
For
you know,
there's always going to be.
Do you know what I feel like? There's always this little fucker, Emil, or little fucking Emil or Phil saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, I know you like to, but...
Yeah. Oh, look, I think that's part of the... That's probably the part of the fun, right? The part of the demons in us. It's like fucking do this, no, do this. No, do this, do this. And that's why you just go to the gym. Well, that's one of the reasons why I like boxing, right?
Yes.
You know, someone holds pads for you and you just go nuts.
But sometimes we need to go to the gym and get somebody else to slap the fuck out of us.
I agree.
You're not professionally.
No, look, do I have a fire in the belly? Yeah. Would I risk it all? No. Would I risk half of it? No. Would I risk some of it? Yes. You know, but I do get conflicted sometimes, you know, and I'll ask you a question. You know, you've done extremely well. You've gone through your hardships, and you're a son of migrants, and you do a lot for charity, and you do a lot for people, and you know, and all the rest of it. But do you ever sit there sometimes and go, "Have I done enough?" And you know, it's a question for you because you know you're very successful yourself.
My father, outside, a couple of weeks ago, I'm in front of my garage, and my little nephew, he comes every Saturday.
I love your nephew.
11
I love it.
years
I see
old.
the videos.
He washes my cars every Saturday.
I love it.
And if it's raining, he gets angry. He washes them inside the garage as well. Freaking everything floods when he's here. But every Saturday comes, and my dad, and I'm talking to my dad, old school migrant, who, when you see his hands, when I say he earned his home or he earned his dollars,
literally.
A little bit different from how we earn it, you know. To my mom, when I tell her I'm tired, she still doesn't think I'm tired because what physical work have you done? Do you know what I mean? Which means you're not fucking tired.
I'm hearing you.
And I said to Dad, Dad, I just purchased this, and I bought this block of land. And Dad says, why? So what do you mean, Dad? Why? He said, well, you and Giselle should just enjoy life. Just enjoy life, travel. I said, Dad, but I love the game that I'm in. I fucking love it. I thrive on it. I love seeing the progress. I love pushing myself. And then I said something interesting. And I said, Dad, plus when Lionel, because Giselle and I don't have kids, but Lionel, you know, he's like my son to me, my nephew. I said, plus when he's 30, he's going to inherit, who knows, maybe billions from Uncle Emil. And the answer from my dad is, no. He needs to suffer first. Yeah. That old school mentality.
He's got to go through the motions.
You know, he needs to suffer first. But with me is I think, which is really interesting. You know, Giselle and I talk about this a lot. I don't know if I'm mad, if I'm crazy, or whatever it is. I truly, deeply love the thrill of the game that I'm in. I love going to my office. Yeah. I love going to my office. I love learning, like, you know, a few times, it's like, Phil, do you mind if I just come to you? I literally, last 2 times, I came to you for no reason. I just, you know, like picking your brains, your ideas, and I fucking love, like with me, you know, we can discuss, you know, let's figure out how we're gonna, you know, make new water that tastes better than this sparkling water, and you know, let's go from concept to us drinking our own water and selling it. It's like, fuck. So I'm not, of course you want it to be profitable. You know, you want to put $2 million in something and go to zero. I understand that part. But with me, that ability to scale and to go through problem solving and that to me is my juice.
Yeah, you love it. And you can tell.
I love, and there's a gentleman, Peter Poljic, his son is actually taking company public now this Thursday, Retirement Villages. He's 79 years old now. He said to me, Emil, the key in life is to keep your fucking energy at age 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. When you see him, age 79, he still rides his bicycle from Gold Coast to Brisbane and back in the same day or 2 days or whatever it is. Energy that he's got, you feel like, man, I'm fucking ashamed to be 46. He's got more energy and life in him than I do at age 46, you know what I mean? So with me, I just want to keep doing everything that I'm doing as long as it's making me feel alive.
Yeah.
And right now, I fucking feel alive.
Yeah.
Like after this, I was like, man, I'm freaking, can't wait till I get to my office. I'm working on this, I'm working on that. Like, even Simon, Tani and Giselle and I are going to Europe on 23rd of July. Like Simon and I had a conversation this morning. I'm so excited about being there. Not just for the whole day. I get to strategize. I was like, motherfucker, why don't you just go there, get fucking drunk for 2 weeks, eat all the French and then Italian fat food and put 10 kilos on. Who gives a fuck? Drink their coffees and come back here and then go to war again. No. So maybe I'm programmed differently, but I have learned how to enjoy things that matter to me, that I like. Yeah. Like, and there is something else that we actually launching today. Always say money is not everything, but being in position where you can make an impact is key.
Agreed.
Because two of us can have 20 billion in account, but if you got no impact or connections or how or know-how or whatever, that's the key. Like, for example, there's something else we're about to actually do today. I want to be Zara, but one lady. 10 days ago, one gentleman, he sent me a message saying, hey, my wife has this specific cancer. She's 36 years old. She's a teacher and she has to have all these treatments. Anyway, they're short money and of course, I get hit every single day. So we start investigating, if people really need it, and I want to fucking help everyone. And then she sent me a message, this lady, her name is Kat. And basically, to summarize it, if she doesn't get $150,000, she's going to die. And it's true. We investigated and it's real deal.
And that's for the medicine, obviously. Yeah?
Correct. And obviously, that doesn't mean she's going to survive, with the cancer. Sometimes, Steve Jobs, with billions in his account, couldn't change anything. And of course, I was like, put my hand up, I'm going to raise all 150. If I can't raise it, I'll donate it. And, but I feel like my energy gives me ability to say yes. Yeah. Then, you know what, I can't be fucked. And today we are launching, literally, I'm raising 150 grand. And I think one of the things that we're going to do, I'm going to organize a dinner and dinner for 30 people, 5 grand each. I'll pay for the freaking dinner and everything and 150 grand. There you go. Hopefully it's going to help you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I feel like my energy gives me ability to make shit happen. And I feel like if I am not like this, maybe I would be like, I'm just going to travel. Like, I don't think I would have an impact that I can have impact, not just give money or raise money for charity. Could be me and you talking to somebody and change his life because we gave him a few ideas. 100%. That's what active in my mind makes me an athlete in things that I also do enjoy. I know I can have an impact or whatever the fuck I'm doing. And if I sell everything and do nothing, I feel like I got no purpose
You've got no purpose,
that I
no
can have
impact,
that
yeah.
impact, if I'm making any sense.
100%. And that's what people say, why do you love the Coffee Commune? And that is why. The impact is, we're helping thousands. We've got 1,700 members, right? And they're all micro, small, medium businesses, mostly micro and small, meaning under 19 employees.
And running any business, small business, it's not easy.
Oh, and it's getting harder because government is pushing through laws and legislation, the same laws and legislation they push for BHP that have got 100 lawyers and 100 HR managers is the same law that a person who employs one or two people has to do, but they don't have the resources. So, people, when they say, what's the most rewarding thing about the Coffee Commune? The membership side, it doesn't make any money. The membership doesn't make money. The coffee production makes money, but it's the part I love the most because it's having the impact on other people. So I'm hearing you. And I think a lot of that is this, our background of son of migrants. It really is. When you're a child of migrants, and you'll know this, right? Our parents. Well, I can speak for my dad. Right? I can't speak for your dad, but I'd love to hear your take on this. My dad loves this country more than 95% of Australians would love this country. Ooh. Why? Because Australians take it for granted, whereas my dad and my mum and my brother and sister were all born in Italy. They spent 4 months on a ship.
To get here.
4 people. There's a picture of them on the ship when they arrived. 4 people. My brother and sister were tiny. 2 suitcases. So they came here, 4 people with 2 suitcases. And Dad talks about, he's never been back to Italy. There you go. In 68 years, never been back to Italy. He loves this country more than 95% of Australians. And I'm not having a go at Australians.
No. You're right. And what my dad says the other day. A couple of weeks ago, my dad was here, my good friend Oggy and I hear my dad was talking to Oggy. Oggy is from same country where I'm from. And Dad is talking to him and Dad says, this is the best country in the world. And Oggy says, why you say that? He said, how this country welcomed us? He said, imagine Australians went to Italy or Croatia, how the fuck would they be treated 30 years ago? Do you know what I mean? Would Italians or Croatians, I'm not saying we are good or bad, would they open their fucking hands to another person coming to their country as a refugee? Do you know what is a question mark? You know what I mean? So, of course, you got, cases where, you got racists. You got fucking racists everywhere.
It's all over the world.
You know what I mean? So that doesn't change, right? He said, how this country welcomed us? He said, there's no way where we come from, we would do the same thing to people that come to us, which is interesting way of looking at it. You know what I mean? I think, your dad and my dad were grateful that they had opportunity to earn $1, to provide for their family. You know what I mean?
But that's what comes back to what you said before. They were looking long term. If they were looking in that moment, I know now, right? My dad was very entrepreneurial in Italy. So Dad used to, people look at my dad, they don't know the story. They go, oh, he worked in the government, he worked as a gardener for 26 years at the hospital. Yeah, that's what he did when he got to Australia because he needed to provide for his family. Of course. What he did in Italy is that he would go to he had a, they used to call it Laba, the 3-wheelers. The Piaggio 3-wheelers, right? He had one of those. He would go to you as a farmer, as a grower. And he'd go, Emil, I'm going to buy all of your lemons before you grow them, the whole lot. But I'm going to pay you after I sell them. Now, I've already got a spot at the market to sell them.
But I'll do the hard yard for you.
All you have to do is grow the best lemons you can. And then I want all of them. I will sell all of them, I guarantee you. And we will split the profits. So you take out your costs, then we split the profits. And farmers would go, okay. So you'd grow the best lemons you could. And he did the same with watermelons, whatever was in season. The farmer would make sure they had the best lemons, the best watermelons, even artichokes, things like this. Whatever they were growing, they were the best. Dad had his market, which is now quite famous at Taormina. Everyone talks about Taormina. Now we're going back 70 years ago. He had his market spot there that he used to pay for, and he'd go and sell. And he'd come back to you, Emil, and he'd go, here you go. Here's your money. This is what your cost was. This is what the profit we made, 50-50. And he'd go to the next and go to the next. There's pictures of my brother and sister. Maybe
that's where you inherited love.
Well, the thinking. But my brother, at 1 year old, I'll never forget it. It's like, it's clear as day. As growing up as a kid, I was looking through the albums. My brother, I saw 2 photos that really stand out. One was them getting off the boat. And the other one was my brother's first birthday in Italy. He's standing on a chair because he had a 3-tiered cake and he had a 3-piece suit on that Mum had sewed for him. And I said,
my mum used to make 3-tier cakes as well.
You think about
and she used to make them, not buy them.
You think about the difference in the picture. I said, Mum, Dad, this picture is you guys, 4 people, 2 suitcases. This picture is, 2 years before my brother turning 1, or 3 years before, because he was 4 when they came here.
Yes, yes.
At 1 year old, there's a 3-tier cake with a 3-piece suit. What's happened? And he goes, good question. We thought about the future. And I said, what do you mean? If we were thinking in the moment, we would have stayed in Italy.
Yes, yes.
But you, your brother and your sister would not have had the life you've got now.
Yes.
Because in Italy at the time, 8 months, 9 months a year, Dad would work. 3 months a year, he'd give the money to Mum. He'd keep some for himself. And 3 months a year, they'd go and play cards and they'd go get dressed up in suits and they'd have guns and all sorts of stupid things that they do in Sicily, right? Right. And nothing illegal in terms of, didn't hurt people and all the rest of it. But they'd be sitting down playing cards and then, Emil, I bet you $50 you can't shoot that bottle of beer over there. And they pull out their guns and shoot the beer. And I mean, it's just things that now sounds crazy, right? But back then it's normal.
Yes.
And Mum said, I don't want this life. This is not the future for our kids.
Yes.
So coming back to the point, if Dad thought about the moment, plenty of money, my mum was sewing because mum used to sew, so she'd sew my brother and sister's clothes, but she'd sew for the whole street, right? 3-tiered birthday cakes, all sorts of stuff. That was in the moment.
Yes.
They chose to migrate here for the future.
But then again, saying that, who knows? Maybe Dad will be the one who invented freaking Lamborghini, and
it could have been in jail.
You'll be Phil Di Bella Lamborghini.
Or he might have been in jail.
Or it could be 50-50. So you don't know.
But again, it comes back to that point. Do I want what I want now for the moment, or is it for that future?
Why Dad never wanted to go back to Italy?
Good question. And when I ask him, he says, well, on $450 a week, my first priority was to pay a house off.
Yes.
He paid the house off in 8 years of arriving into Australia. He goes, my next priority was to make sure that there was good food on the table. Yes. I grew up eating rib fillet. I never forget. Rib fillet, when I'm 50, so when I was 8 years old, call it 9 years old, rib fillet 42 years ago was $6, $7 a kilo.
Yes, which is a lot of money.
A lot of money when you're earning $450.
Like $100 now, more.
Yeah. I used to play tennis.
Yes.
So I used to be a tennis player.
So Dad was putting his family long-term thinking.
My shoes were $200 a pair.
What about last 10 years?
Sorry, the last because he's had heart trouble since he's 55. Okay. He's I'm not getting on a plane, and he gets motion sickness.
Yes.
And so the furthest he's ever gone is to Melbourne. I've sent him to Melbourne a few times. I pay for them to go to the Gold Coast. They never owned a brand new car. I used to know the RA. Here's a funny story. People go, "Why are you fascinated with cars?" I used to know the RACQ number off by heart because we would break down once a week.
What's the number?
I'd have to ring the RACQ because Mum and Dad didn't speak great English, and I'd have to ring RACQ and get them to come out and fix whatever the problem was.
Do you enjoy traveling yourself?
I do. I enjoy the traveling, but I enjoy the moments. So it doesn't
and can
really
you
matter.
can you be present on a holiday as a holiday person, or are you freaking itchy when you're on holiday? Because these days I can, like, even, when I go to Europe in particular, I'm always thinking about work, and I feel like that's my time to strategize and so on, but I can also be present. Yeah. I can also have a coffee in some Italian freaking village for 3 hours and speak Italian, which I can't speak, to the guy who can't speak English, and we are communicating.
That's beautiful.
And I love it.
Yeah, no, I can now. And that was only after I probably sold the business. I'm a lot more present now. And I can enjoy it. But again, there comes a time, like I can't go sit for 3 months. We just got back from Tasmania. We're supposed to, you're going to love it. We're supposed to be there 2 weeks. We shut from 14 days. It ended up becoming 12 days, became 10, and then it ended up being 7. So we came back a whole week earlier because we did everything we needed to do in 7 days. People go, did you spend a whole day at Mona? No, we spent 2.5 hours. Oh, but did you see everything? Yes, we went through every floor, every section. And that's where we're lucky as a family. We move at the same pace, right? My kids are the same. We came, we saw, so we did Mona, then we did the winery, then we did the whiskey facility, all in the same day.
Can you ever see yourself living anywhere else but Brisbane?
Yes. Queenstown.
I know you love Queenstown. I'm excited to go the next couple of weeks because I actually, which is so crazy, I have never been there.
Yeah, well, I'm going to show you.
And I go to Perth all the time, which is 6 hour flight. You can go and come back from Queenstown.
You're going to love Queenstown. It's one of these places, when you've been once, it won't be the last time. I promise you.
Yes.
The moment you land, because you walk off the plane.
What is your favorite season of the year to go to Queenstown?
Oh, summer or spring.
Really?
It's nice in winter, but it's cold.
Yes.
8 degrees. But summer, it's 28, 29 degrees, no humidity. The sun goes down at 10 o'clock at night. So, if you're into golf, if you love going bloody fishing.
And it's not
hiking,
too big of a town as well. It's easy to get around.
And it's a tourist town. So everyone's happy.
Is that your favorite place? Because I know you had a house there for many years.
Yeah, correct. And we're going to build a new one soon. But, in a few years when the land finishes. But it's anywhere outside of Brisbane, it'd be Queenstown.
Yes.
But it is slower. It's like we always joked. My kids said, if you move to Queenstown, you'll probably become the mayor of Queenstown. A friend of mine's building 6.
And obviously, Australians, they can no problem buy there.
Yeah. No problems. Only Australians, New Zealand, and Singaporean. But they're going to change that soon again because that was the intention was good, but the execution was stupid, right? The whole idea was let's limit the people buying here, so we've got a house for New Zealanders, and that's a good thing.
Yes.
But how many New Zealanders are going to buy a house over $5 million?
Yes.
So just cap it at $5 million. You drive.
So you're saying there's a lot more foreign money in Queenstown itself than actually.
Yeah. They were getting a lot of American money, a lot of Asian money, and so it was driving prices through the roof, right?
Yes.
But it was driving the top end prices.
Not the bottom end.
Not the bottom end. So that's why the intention was good. I talk about this a lot in politics.
Yes.
The intention can be good, but the execution can be poor.
Yes.
And that was one of the things. The intention was good. Let's stabilize prices.
Yes.
And I agree with that. Even in Australia, if they're looking at doing that, let's stabilise. So let's say, right, house under 3 million is for Australians only, or under 5 million. Anything over 5 million, you got the best of both worlds. Then you've got the money coming in to lift the value, but you've also got the stock for people that the Australians, or in this case the New Zealanders, to have it. It's a good policy to have, right?
And I think it's hard to sometimes manage that in developed countries. Because a bit of a greed comes into the play.
Yeah, of course.
How dangerous is greed for entrepreneurs?
Oh, I think it can be distracting. It comes back to relationship with money, Emil. People do get greedy. It's not just entrepreneurs. As we know, staff members get greedy. People get greedy. We had a case a couple of weeks ago when our retail team, we gave them, our retail, we said, this is where we want you to be. Service isn't good enough. I don't want people rocking up and being on their phones, and the cafe is nothing to us, but it's our front door. That's where people come in to visit at the commune, and I want people to welcome people. I don't want, hey mate, I just want hello or welcome. I don't want you dressed in gym shorts, and I don't want you on your mobile phone. Of course, 3/4 of the staff didn't like that, so we got no problems telling them where the door is.
Yes.
Anyway, long story short, one of the other staff members that stayed said, you need me now, so I want $10 more an hour. We said, sorry? That's one thing. I've been done a lot of things, but I've never been tried to be extorted or blackmailed. There you go.
You're asking the wrong person. I don't think people understand how fucking hard business is.
No, well, you don't know what you don't know, right? When you go, well, I haven't had a pay rise in my business for 4 years. We've made money for 4 years, right? And I expected that.
Yes,
we'll make money next year, right? And of course, the balance sheet looks good. The valuation goes up. But I haven't increased my wage in 4 years. But your wage has gone up 7% every year. So I'm paying you before I pay me.
And I'm taking the risk.
And I'm taking the risk, right? And, so what we do now a lot more, and they still might not get it, but we show them the P&Ls. Because everyone thinks you're making millions, right?
Yes.
And you go, well, this side of the business makes money, but this side is where we spend it to boost it. And I'm not complaining. I'm not whinging. Yes. This is all mapped out. This is strategized.
How you want me to pay you?
Yeah, this is exactly, we've strategized this, but I've put my money in every year to cover the shortfall. Because you're still getting your wage increases. You still get paid all the time. I got asked a question the other day. Do you see a gender gap in pay in Australia? And I said, I know it exists, but it's never existed in my business.
Yes.
I said, I've owned businesses for 22 years. I've never paid any different to a female or a male.
I pay myself the least.
I said, I've never paid anyone different. And they said, well, you're very rare. And I said, well, I know that there's a problem in Australia that exists, but it's never existed in my companies because everyone's gotten paid the same.
Do you think if every person who wants to become a business owner, if they really knew what business is about and how hard the first 5 years, how many of them do you think percentage-wise wouldn't even fucking start? Oh,
a lot of them. But you know what the upside is? The ones that don't start are the ones that probably go broke. So the ones that don't start shouldn't start, because 1 in 3 businesses, well, more now, probably 2 in 3 go broke. So if they, I say this, you need to do an apprenticeship to be a tiler. You need to be an apprenticeship to be a bricklayer. You need an apprenticeship to be even a chef, right? Unless you want to be a cook. But if you want to be a qualified chef, you got to do an apprenticeship. Why don't you have to do some sort of apprenticeship to be a business owner? Because when businesses fail, they cost countries. Oh, yeah. They cost money, right? They cost people money. They set up a business. They don't need a degree to set up a business, to set up an ABN or a company. They go into business. They rack up all these creditors, right? They fail. Those creditors are often mum and dads that don't get paid, that then can't pay their suppliers.
And not just that, every person who decides to start that, you're having that much of an impact, not just to other families. You also might have a wife or husband or
Correct.
kids. And
responsibility.
The responsibility of not going back is, whew.
Yeah. And that's one thing that we say is really, I'll keep coming back to get comfortable with your worst case scenario. Yes. What is the worst case?
And can you handle that?
Can you handle it? And we see it in obviously the One Life Club, where people, I want to scale. I want to scale. Why do you want to scale? And they go, what do you mean? Why are you asking me that? Because it's a genuine question. Why do you want to scale? What is driving this? Is it the ego? Is it the emotion?
Yes.
Is it the drive? Because there's nothing wrong with impact.
What do you think business owners are driven by? I mean, you have spoken to, and even right now at One Life Club, you are amazing, and everybody respects you, but you speak to a lot of business owners, not just One Life Club. You have spoken to thousands of them over your life. What is the thing that drives us all? Besides us being fucking mad.
Yeah.
And
look, the negative thing that drives people is money. That's the negative.
Yes.
And I say that because,
and if you look at 100% of business people and you have to divide them, what's the percentage that you think are driven by money? Is it half?
Oh, probably 70% are driven by money. But the other 30% is, a part of it is money, but it's the impact and control of their own life. So for me, I was driven by being in control of my own life. Why? Because my dad used to work on Sundays and take Friday and Saturdays off. And he worked Sunday because he got paid double time on a Sunday as a yardsman. So, but what impact did that have? That meant I didn't see my dad on a Sunday, I saw him on a Saturday, right? So as a young person, I said, I want to start my own business because I want to be in control of my working hours.
How did that go first 10 years?
I was working more than ever, right? So,
I think there's the biggest mistake that people make is they ask themselves, I'm going to start my own business so I can control my own hours. I was like, buddy, you start your own business. That's right. There is no fucking hours. You'll be like exactly a 7-Eleven full time.
So what happens then is you come back and you go, hang on, this isn't what I really signed up for. But then you go, well, what am I really driven by? I'm driven by, I want to make something for my life. I want to make something for my children. I want to make something for my future. I want to have an impact. What is it? Because everything comes at a cost. And I've got that in my family, right? My brother and I, quite entrepreneurial, have had businesses. My brother used to work for government, then he started his own businesses, had his own business for 40 years plus, probably 35 years. He's 13 years older than me. He's still got his own businesses. My sister never owned her own business but wanted to, and her husband never owned her own business. Now, we're all successful, just to different things to different people.
And I think it's important we chase our own shit. You know what I mean? Because, I remember sitting with a friend of mine, Peter, and who's done extremely well for himself. And we were sitting in a coffee shop and there was a gentleman cleaning the road by hand. And he said, doesn't mean what we do, two of us are happier than him as individual.
100%.
Because if he lived our lives, he'll probably have a fucking heart attack tomorrow. He'd be miserable, you know what I mean? So there's nothing wrong doing whatever that is, as long as you see purpose and see yourself in it.
Correct. And we see it through our parents, right? I sit there, I go visit my mum and dad every week, or most weeks when I'm not traveling. I ring them every second day. And I just sit there with them for half an hour. And Dad will always look and say, and he talks about, and he'll always tell a story about back in Sicily. He'll tell a story when he came here, and then he'll tell a story about the kids.
And he probably heard the story about 650 times,
at least,
still listening.
At least, I'm still listening. But he always says one thing to me, Emil, and he says, always remember, son, keep your fingers on your pulse. And it's an Italian saying, keep your fingers on your pulse, meaning the heartbeat is what matters. Your bank account, everything else sits over here. Your heartbeat. If the heart's not beating, nothing's working. So that's a very short way of saying be healthy, be a good person, be good to your family, Be good to people around you.
No
Don't forget where you come from.
No difference between right and wrong. You know what I mean?
Correct. And here's a person, because when people say, was your dad successful? Fucking oath he was successful. He migrated here. He earned $450 a week, right? He had his first heart attack at 55, which he had to retire. He's 88. I don't know if he'll make 89, touch wood, but 88. He's brought up 3 children. He paid for all of our school. We didn't go to private school, but he still covered all of the school. He covered all of my university. Something tells
me it would be a waste of money for 2 of us.
Well, he covered my university. He paid for my university. He bought my first car for me, right? He married 3 kids, meaning he paid for the weddings.
He had a successful life.
He had a very successful life. Why? He's lived in his 80s. He had enough money and time to do what he wanted when he wanted. Because when I said to him, Dad, didn't you ever want to go back to Italy? He said, son, no. But I sent your mum there 3 times.
Yes.
I had no interest.
And you lived through her.
Yeah, That's right. I had no interest to go. So I look at you, I look at your brother, I look at your sister. And to me, I'm successful because when I came here, remember how I said this before, I came here to give you guys a better life, and you've all done well in your own way. And that's, to me, is success. And I look at that and I go, that's very true. And that's the basis of what I've been talking about on today is relationship with money.
Yes.
Impact you want to make. Don't always make your decisions in the now. Make those decisions in the future, and work them back. It's something that's really, really important. It's one of the things I'm looking forward to. I'm presenting at One Life Club Summit is on the back.
In New Zealand, Queenstown.
I love it.
Your time.
But I'm presenting
I'm only going to be eating where you're eating.
Well, it's going to be, and what I'm actually going to be talking about on the back of what you and Simon talk about of value per second is we're going to talk about outcomes, 3 years, 12 months, break it down and really map your life out, personally, professionally, family. So people listening, if they're not coming to One Life Club, they should be coming to the summit, right? Because we're going to be covering some cool shit like that. And why?
That's the thing about you. You fucking love sharing your life.
Love it.
In your journey because you can save somebody else's, you can save 10 years of somebody's fucking struggles or going through shit or going through business or whatever from your life,
correct.
New experience.
And I love it.
Because every new business person, you've made every fucking mistake they're going to make tomorrow.
Yeah, agreed. And there's people that have made more mistakes than me, and there's people that I want to learn from out there and listen to and story. Everyone's got a story.
Yes,
Emil, you know that, and that's why you love doing your podcast, and it's so popular because everyone's got a story. Doesn't matter what it is. I mean, you look at somebody like Sam, a get-ahead. That guy's story. I mean, and he's right at that tipping point now. He wants to go into the States. He needs that investment to do it.
Yes.
That guy there he's if he gets the right people, and he's going to go hard.
But with him, with people like him, I feel like what he's not losing is his focus.
Totally.
Because a lot of people, it's very easy to get distracted. It's fucking very easy to get distracted in any stage of your life, not alone when you're starting. Because, I mean, I have invested a lot of money into a lot of startups and they're going like this. You know what? I'm gonna now do something else. I was like, no, buddy. I invested $1 in you. Racehorse, blinkers. Keep fucking going till you win. There's no looking left and right. There's opportunity here, but you're gonna lose 20% of your time, of your energy doing something else, and this might suffer. So I feel like talk of Sam. He's not distracted. And he knows the price that he's paying to actually get to.
And you know what I like about stories like that? He's a good example, Emil, because a lot of these startups and that when they start to raise capital, they start to pay themselves CEO wages.
Yes.
Sam doesn't even pay himself. He pays himself under $100,000 a year, way less. I don't even know what the number is, but it's way less than that, right? Last time I heard he was paying himself $40,000 a year. There, like he's not in his office. He rents a space off us in our shared office. So he hasn't gone for a big elaborate office. He spends everybody's money like it's his because he's also the major shareholder, which is one thing I love. He's kept the major shares for himself to make sure that he keeps those blinkers on and keeps him going. And one thing I say to him all the time is learn from people's mistakes, learn from others that have gone out there.
But he's very blessed that he has you in his life as well, so you can show him the path you went through as well. I mean, the knowledge is the key.
Oh, it is. And there's a lot of others too that, and I mean, I always say to him, we've got to bring someone like Emil on board too, because you've got a lot to offer in terms of that energy and that space and that creativity too. I always said to him, the people you bring on have to add value to you. You've got to add value to them. They've got to add value to you. And that's great for anyone listening is, hey, do I expand? Do I do this? Do I bring on an investor? They've got to add value. If they don't add value, why do you want their money for?
Well, money can only last you for so long, but you're going to be married to that person potentially for 1, 2, 5, 20 or 30, 50 years. You know, and can you handle that? You know, I had a team of people in my office this morning. We just bought into one business. I said, you know, this is not a one-night stand. This is not dating. It's a fucking marriage. And let me tell you, in any marriage, wife and husband, they want to probably strangle each other on a daily fucking basis, but they walk through it. And they keep living together. They might be pissed off at each other most fucking days, but at the end of the day, they go to bed and wake up the next day next to each other. That's just part of
it's part of the journey, right? It can't. I always say if it's easy, everybody would do it. You know, people go, "How hard is it?" It should be fucking hard.
Yes.
Let's be honest. If it wasn't hard, everybody wants easy.
Yes.
Everybody wants the best. That's why I say the best doesn't exist.
Yes.
Everybody wants the best.
For somebody
What
to
is the
win,
best?
somebody has to lose.
Well, unfortunately, it does work like that, right? And so, you know, and sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, right? Sometimes we make the right decision, sometimes we make the wrong decisions. That's just life. I mean, at the end of the day, it's how do we go into, you know, there's a great poem called The Dash, right? The date you're born, the day you die, your life only stands for that dash. And it's a very powerful, you know, Richard Gerber talks about it in E-Myth. He says, what do people talk about at your eulogy? You call it whatever you want, right? Eulogy, the dash. At the end of the day, I've never been to a funeral where people say, he was so perfect, she was so perfect. No one's fucking perfect, right? But what impact did they have? What were their intentions like? Did they fuck up 90% of the time, or did they fuck up 10% of the time? You know, it's because they're all going to fuck up.
Phil, life we lived, I think we're at the higher scale. I don't think there's a 10% of the time with anything. And somebody asked me the other day, you know what, Emil, is there one thing you would change about your past? I was like, you know, I must sound like an arrogant dick. There's nothing, because, I mean, thinking about it, you want to change everything, right? Because we fucked up that much that you want to turn yourself upside fucking down. But I said, I'm actually liking myself today. And I feel like every single fuck up or good that I ever had has made me into the person that I am today.
And that's powerful words there.
And I'm liking me today.
Yeah,
so you can't go backwards,
words.
you know.
And it's a good share, because that is, you know, do I like me today? It's a great question to ask. Do I like me? Because I think sometimes people get, and I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, he's doing everything right, but he's not happy.
Yeah.
And I said to him, why are you not happy? And he goes, because I'm doing everything right for everybody else.
No, he's not living for himself.
Trying to make my parents happy. I'm trying to make my wife happy. I'm trying to make my kids happy. I'm trying to make my auntie happy.
What do you do for you?
I'm trying to make my brother happy. Everything's about making everyone else happy. I said, well, sometimes you're going to have to piss people off, because what are you doing to make you happy? You know? And he said to me, he goes, it's a fucking great question. You know? And I said, mate, you know, you're still young. You can make these decisions, right? You don't want to be doing this at 70. You don't want to be doing that, sitting there at 70 and said, you know what, I made everybody else happy, but my last 20 years were fucking miserable.
I think people forget that clock doesn't stop ticking.
Yeah.
Phil, it's been a pleasure, man. I love talking to you. These conversations, I feel like with you, I can be like Joe Rogan and have a conversation for 6 hours. Now, I'm going to ask you one question that I know you have a huge opinion on. Politics.
Yeah.
Do you think that, in your mind, do you think to become a politician, you should be a business owner first?
Yeah. The system's, the simple answer to that, and I can do it on your show, the system is fucked. And
the reason why I say that, because the biggest business that exists in the country is fucking country.
It is the federal
itself,
the federal
right?
budget is the biggest business.
And if you don't know how to manage
Money.
10 staff or 50 or money
100%.
and pay the rent on time and pay everybody on time, if you can't manage that, how the fuck are you going to manage?
And on the back of that, people need to listen to this. It's very simple, right? Because I don't talk opinions, I talk facts and data. It is the biggest business in the country, right? You're talking about budgets in the billions and trillions, right?
And you're playing with people's lives.
You're playing with people's lives. Whatever decision you make has an impact on the people that actually contribute that money.
A lot of people.
Government doesn't make money. Let that sink in. Government collects money. The more money the government gives out, the more money it has to collect. Every time it collects money, right, it gives money out. Every time it gives money, it's got to collect money. That's what first part of politics people don't understand. The second part where the system is broken is this. In 10 and 15 years' time, we do not have smart politicians coming through the system right now, because why would you want to be a politician? You work 24/7. Everyone says they get paid too much money. They don't. They pay 50% tax, right? And there's going to be people listening to this not understand, but that's not even important. So even the Prime Minister who earns $600,000 a year only takes home $300,000.
And he's running the biggest.
He's running
business.
the biggest,
and he's being judged.
Correct.
Every single second.
24/7. So if you put yourself in that position, if people have gotten past that part, who in their right mind that has the amazing talent to be a CEO of an organization, right? CEO of Microsoft or CEO of Apple, who's on 50 million a year, right? Why would they want to become the Prime Minister of not just Australia, of any country when they're under scrutiny, they're underpaid? But this is the biggest part of the problem, Emil, and it's a podcast in itself as a discussion for people to understand. But the short story is this: we don't vote. If you own Apple and you're hiring the CEO, you have a team of people that will go and recruit the right person, interview the right person, and then you get to decide that person. Australians don't understand this yet. We do not vote for the Prime Minister, he or she, unless they live in our electorate. You do not vote for them. You vote for their representative. But if their representative is good and you don't like the Prime Minister-elect, you don't vote for them. If the people are crap...
So then the system itself is broken.
Correct. And unless you fix a system, you won't get quality people come through. And so the short answer is fix a system.
That means who the fuck is going to be running this country in 20 years?
Well, that's the scary part.
Maybe just two of us will move to some village in Italy start planting cucumber and tomatoes and shit.
Well, you look at the countries that are trying to catch up now. Italy's one of them. Greece is one of them. Germany.
What do you think of that Italian Prime Minister?
She's good. You know why she's good? Because
looks like she's a freaking tough cookie.
She's focused on the people. She's focused on the people.
Oh, saying that, what's the name of the old
Berlusconi,
who won the Milan? He was a freaking...
He was crazy, right?
I feel like he was the real Italian.
Well, he was.
On football teams.
Yeah. And again, you know, like the Italian system's broken. People that have been out of the country for 60 years are still getting a pension from Italy. Like, no wonder the country's gone broke, right? You can't... The ideology of politics, and that's why it's a hard one to fix, Emil. Short answer is, people always look at politics of what suits them. Let that sink in. What suits them. I've paid over $33 million in personal tax. $33 million in personal tax.
It's a lot of money.
Forget company tax and shit, right? $33 million in personal tax, and I'm 50.
Did you get a letter saying thank you, Phil? Good job, buddy.
No. And I only get one vote, right? Now I've got no problem paying tax, but I've got a problem with how they spend it, and a lot of people have said that. And Kerry Packer was famous for the words, but I do have a problem with how they spend it, right? You know, I'll give you an example, and this is where I want the listeners, because again, this could be confusing for people if they're just picking up bits of it. Ready for this? This is my issue. This will sum up my issue. And I had this discussion with my kids just the other day in the car when we were driving through fucking Tasmania. The government before has promised $320 billion to build submarines. Now just let that sink in. $320 billion to build submarines for our next war. Listen, motherfuckers, and this is exactly what I said to my kids. I said, listen, motherfuckers, the next war is not going to be fought by submarine. It'll be cybersecurity or it'll be biochemical warfare. It'll be a COVID-like issue or it'll be a cybersecurity issue. No fucking submarine is going to fix that issue, right? Now, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not the smartest person in Australia, and I'm not the smartest person in the fucking room. But I can tell you that $320 billion worth of submarines, and even... I think somebody who's 10 years old would understand this at school, that $320 billion on submarines is not going to solve the problem of this country in terms of a possible war. So part two to this discussion is this. 320, and you'll love this because you're in the property game. For $100,000, you can buy a two-bedroom dongle, a two-bedroom demountable cabin that's got a nice brand new. It's got a kitchen.
How much...
How many people can we house with $320 billion? I'll tell you this. Nobody in Australia will be living on the streets. Nowhere. Now, they might not be able to live in New Farm, Indooroopilly.
But they'll have a roof.
But they'll have a roof and a head. And not only that, the amount of food that gets wasted by the supermarkets that goes to the dump, make it mandatory that they have to deliver it into these villages.
Do you think this will ever change?
Until you change the system, it won't. Because guess what?
Do you believe system will ever change?
Not in my lifetime, unfortunately. If I could hit the magic wand, it would be... Now, this gives the listeners an example of what happens when you have an entrepreneurial thinker. redivert the $320 billion. That one decision will do the following. It'll make sure $320 billion will make sure nobody in Australia lives on the street. Nobody.
But that is one thing.
This is one thing, but again, the concept
how many other billions of projects government is spending money on that can be used elsewhere?
But simple things like, Emil, the amount of tons of food that gets wasted by supermarkets, right? They don't sell it, they send it off, they're not allowed to sell it. Make it mandatory that you have to have a 0 waste or a 2% waste. That food has to be put on a truck and has to be shipped to, rural land where you've built $100,000. And not only do they now get accommodation over their head, they now get food delivered, fresh food delivered that would have gone to waste, right? That's two decisions that have solved two big problems, right?
And you know what? You think sometimes that the age that we are living now, people should be smart enough not to destroy certain things in life. Like 2025, people are still having wars. Yeah. People are still dying.
Yep.
There are countries where people are still hungry. I was like, are we really that smart?
No, we're not.
As humans.
That's right, we're not. Because
my two little dogs, every time they see me, even if it's every 30 minutes, they get excited, they lose their shit, they're running around, they're so happy. Yeah. I was like, they're surely going to be fucking smarter than humans, right? Yeah. So how can we change human behavior that we care more about decisions that we make?
Yeah, we got to get our egos out of the way because people think they're smarter than what they really are. And what happens is people get sucked into propaganda and they get sucked into stories. It's simple. Get rid of the ego, get rid of the emotion, push the stories to the side and just talk logic. That's all they need to do, Emil, talk logic.
They're
$320 billion. Am I right or am I wrong? Is is the next war going to be fought with a submarine?
That's ridiculous.
I mean, it's not. I mean, your nephew's 11 years old. He's obviously a lot smarter than 11 years old. You ask 11-year-old what he would do with $320 billion, and I bet you it'll be something to do with accommodation or.
Actually, knowing me, would probably say, "Uncle, I'll buy more Ferraris." but there's a saying: "You're not who you think you are. You're not who you want to become. You are what your actions show today."
Yeah, very true, very true. And you can see I get passionate about this because I go. Like you, why? Why in today's world? Why? Yeah. Like and then you read people's comments. Like I put a post up that went ballistic a couple of weeks ago, where I said instead of worrying about what Gina Reinhardt does with her money,
yes,
worry about what the Prime Minister's doing with your money.
Yeah, sure. That has a bigger impact on your life than what she does because she's not using your dollars.
Correct, and she's paying tax, and she's paying for the Australian Olympic team, and I don't know Gina personally, and I hear that she gives a lot of money away and all the rest of it.
But people quite often don't see the good things.
No, they only see what they want to see. They believe the propaganda or they talk. One thing I always say, Emil, is when somebody says, oh, that person, I don't like him. Have you met them? I always ask them, have you met them? I've had a lot of people say, oh, you're not like what I was told. Well, why
what am I supposed to be?
why were you listening to what you were told? I don't. If I ever met you,
I'm the same, man. When people start telling me about somebody, I was like, from what I know, is how I was treated. It's a different story, but which is really interesting how the world is behaving now because you got so much access to information, right? Because we got so much access to information, we should be more aware. We should be smarter. We should be more giving. We should have more care factor. Yeah. You know what I mean? But saying that, I believe there are still good humans on this planet.
Oh, for sure.
There's still so many amazing people. And I always like to think the good will prevail anything bad.
I agree. And listeners, if you're going to read one book in your life, listen to the audio actually. Is Eddie Jackaus. Eddie Jackaus wrote Happiest Man on Earth. He died at 103 a couple of years ago. He was a survivor of the Holocaust. And his saying was millions of people died because a few good people did nothing.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's a philosophy. You combine that with Gandhi's words that I talk a lot about. Be part of the change you want to see in the world.
Yes.
People go, why do you get so rolled up about politics? Why do you get so passionate? 10, 15 years. Right? I'm first generation Australian. Yes. First generation Australian. My kids don't talk about opening a business in Australia. They talk about opening businesses overseas.
I do believe there will be a point in your life, knowing you, that will that will click that you will say, okay, I'm actually getting into politics?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'd never say never, but I do a lot of work with politicians.
Yes.
And I've had a big impact over the years, and a lot of the impact people wouldn't know because that's our job when we're behind the scenes. And I've never taken a paid political role, but I've worked with a lot of prime ministers and premiers over the years.
The only thing is with you, I feel like you would be politicians with no filter, because I feel like a lot of politicians are controlled with what they can say and what they cannot. I feel like if you're under the current system, I do believe you would be somehow sacked within an hour. I feel like you'll be the shortest fucking prime minister position ever lived in Australia.
Oh, for sure. And I'll tell you this, so I make this promise, right? If in my younger years, meaning not at 80 or 90, if I make it that far, they changed the federal political system to be like the Brisbane Lord Mayor system, then I would go for politics. There we go. Because you know what happens there?
I will be definitely voting for you. I can promise you that.
Well, people go, why does that? Well, think about the Brisbane or the Gold Coast mayor system, how it works. You vote for the mayor, he or she, and whatever party, and you vote then for your local member as well.
Yes.
So you vote twice. Whereas state and federal, you don't vote for the leader. You put the people on the bus and then they vote for the leader. The only way I would contemplate politics at a federal level or a state level, but mostly federal because that's where the impact needs to be made, is if the system was changed.
But I would feel like you would be that kind of leader who would need to have a little bit more freedom than what they have at the moment.
Oh, look, I'd be a simple leader. I'd turn around and say, these are the 5 things I'm going to do in the next 3, or you'd want 4-year terms. This is the 5 things I'm going to do in the next 4 years. If you want this change and you want these outcomes, you vote for me. If they don't align, don't vote for me. And then I would work my ass off to make sure that those things got done. And I'd work with whatever. And this is where my clincher would be. I wouldn't work with parties. I'd be an independent. And I'd go, I'm running as an independent because you're going to vote for me based on what I tell you I'm going to do. I want you to vote for your local member. And this is going to send the political parties in a big spin. I want you to vote for your local member based on what they're going to do for you. And if whoever you vote for is whoever I'm going to work with. And if they don't do what you want them, what they said they're going to do, vote them out at the next election.
Which is interesting. A lot of people, they get stubborn in their own heads, like talking to my mother-in-law. I always vote for this party, and I won't say which party it is, but since I know her for 26, 7 years, she's been voting for. I don't think she even knows who the fucking the leader is. I'm voting for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's and there's a lot of that. But and that's where you got to break the system. You got to break and say, Emil, what matters to you? Right? Look at what Queensland Premier did. David did an amazing job, right? We got elected as the party leader, and he said, right, now we've built my team, and now we're going to pick 4 things that matter to Queensland people. 4 things. And we're going to stay on track with those 4 things. Yep, there's other things we've got to do, but these are the 4 things.
I do believe that he might be, I won't say next prime minister, but maybe next.
If he chooses to, he's got the quality, right? And he's definitely got the quality. I know David personally, and have a lot to do with the government because they're very active and work with businesses, right? He has amazing quality. He's got a good work ethic. Good son of migrants. Good work ethic. He's a people person. He's a team builder. Forget what party he is. You talk to the people in his party. He communicates, he collaborates, he works with them, he empowers them. So when I'm meeting on small business, and I've met with the minister 5-6 times now, it's the small business minister. It's not David trying to come in over the top. He empowers his ministers to do what they need to do. When I met with Tim Nichols, the health minister, I met with Tim. So he's a very, very good leader. He's young. I'm sure he's ambitious, but people don't understand his wife Tegan is a lovely lady. They've got kids. It takes a big impact on what they do. I work closely with the Lord Mayor, Adrian. I've known Adrian for 20 years. He calls me brother. We work closely together. I've mentored him, all sorts of stuff. His wife Nina is an amazing woman, and they've got
very
4
passionate.
kids. Yeah, and does amazing stuff for charity, and they've got 4 kids. Now, people don't realise the impact that lifestyle has on their families. It is a sacrifice, right? Now, they do it knowingly, but look at what they've also got to put up with when people, because some people can be pretty bad. Right?
I think it's not just leaders that might be good leaders and bad leaders. And I think it's us humans that are voting for them, I think everybody should be educated
Correct.
in the system like you before they fucking vote.
Correct.
So I think people need to go, I won't say university, but then there needs to be fucking something where they go and learn so they're more educated, because we control. I was talking to one lady from South Africa, and she said people in South Africa, particularly in that country, because she's from there, they complain about system, lifestyle and everything South Africa. She said everybody's complaining about the government and the systems. And she said, but the funny thing is, if I'm driving a car 100 kilometers on 60 and police officer stops me there and there's a fine, $500, but I know I can just give him $50 cash, he's going to let me go through. Yeah. She said, what do you think I would do, Emil? I said, I don't know, maybe right thing. She said, no, I'll give him $50. Yeah. So I'm creating the fucking system that I'm in.
Yeah.
And then we're all whinging about it.
Correct. You know, people don't understand the basics.
So maybe even here, we need to educate ourselves. You know what? If I'm going to vote for this person or that party or this, what impact they're actually having on my life, on countries, instead of this is who I've always been voting for.
You're right.
Maybe it's our fault.
Well, it is, because most people don't understand the system, right? Have you been reading a lot of the threads at the moment where people go, I haven't found anyone who voted for the Prime Minister. Yeah. Well, firstly, you don't vote for the Prime Minister because you've got to live in his electorate. That's why you can't find people that voted for him.
I don't think people know.
That's right. Secondly, he got less primary votes this time than he did last time. Right? Now, people go, what are you talking about? Because the system is mandatory preferential. You have to... Yes. In my area, there were 7 people. I only knew 3 of them.
Yes.
So I'm forced, if I want my vote to count, I'm forced to vote for 7 people. I've got to number them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I miss one, my vote doesn't count. So technically I'm voting for 4 people of the 7. I've got no idea who they are.
And there's a very good chance people like me, I will always be like 2 minutes before they're closing. I'll be there like, okay, let me just quickly tick,
so
and I'm
tell
there.
me where the system works. It doesn't work because firstly, that's not democracy. I'm voting for people I don't know. I have to vote for everybody. No, you have a choice. That's a system. You vote for one person or you can vote for all of them, your choice, but your choice. The other one is we take off for a running race, you, me and Simon.
Yes.
You come first, Simon comes second, I come third. But because Simon gives me his votes, I come first.
Yes. How's that figure?
When you explain it like that, people go, I didn't realise that. And it comes back to what you said. At school, ask your kids this. The listeners, ask the kids, because I've done this. They don't teach you how to open a bank account.
Yes.
They don't teach you how to register an ABN. They don't teach you how to build a tax file number as an employee. Yes. They don't tell you how to vote in this country. They don't tell you about mandatory preferential or preferential voting or optional preferential. They don't teach you all of the different stuff. But they teach you about, the Constitution of China and the World War I and World War II. Now, I'm not saying that's not important, but to me, learning about my country is a lot more important than World War I and World War II and ancient pyramids and all this sort of stuff. Important, but more important to understand my country first and how to open a bank account and all the rest of it. So I think there's a lot of responsibility and changes needed across a lot of dynamics. But again, it's you asked the question, and it's been long for me to get involved in anything like that. One person can't turn the Titanic.
Yes,
the Titanic's fucking sunk and it's gone. But not as that in the movie when that one person's trying to move the Titanic away.
But I feel like as human behavior is changing, so will the countries. So will everything. You know what I mean? Because I think that people's attention span is completely different, and people how they're educated now, how they have access to education and to knowledge is different. So I think everything is changing and so hopefully for better.
As long as they don't become lazy too. Because what happens is...
That's another topic. I can talk about this for 6 hours.
Because what happens is people get more tools.
You can be the smartest person in the world, and if you're lazy, all that goes to rubbish. And when people say, you know what, we need to bring... people need to work 2 days a week and so they can rest 5 days a week. I was like, how much would they have to earn in those 2 days to actually fund 5 days, 5 days, them not doing anything and having I know if I'm not doing something, you want to do something, you want to go somewhere. It's like, who the fuck is going to pay for that? Phil, it's been a pleasure having you here.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
You're a gentleman.
Thank you.